What's up, big dogs? This is the Big Dog. It's hybrid, it's cheap, and it's trying to look tough. But is it good? Okay, it's actually called the JWM Haval H7 here in Australia, but in its home market of China, it is called the Haval Big Dog. Missed opportunity in my opinion. It's closely related to the Haval H6, and it even shares the same underbody underpinnings, the Lemon platform. But despite that platform's unfortunate name, there's a fair bit to like about this big dog. So let's get into it. There's one variant for the Haval H7 in Australia at the moment, and it's this, the Vanta Hybrid. It's about $3,000 more than the equivalent Ultra Hybrid in the H6 range, but this thing comes with plenty of kit. The H7 comes with a bunch of things you would expect from a car like this at a price point like this, but it does also have some nice mod cons, like a leather accented interior with heated and vented seats that are also electrically adjustable. It's got a giant 14-inch multimedia touchscreen, and it also has a head-up display for the driver. You get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, plus a wireless phone charger and an 8-speaker surround sound system. Plus there's a panoramic sunroof and some ambient lighting to help create a good vibe. On the outside there's 19-inch machined alloy wheels, LED auto headlights, daytime running lights, taillights and fog lights, and there's also keyless entry and an automatic tailgate with a hands-free kick sensor for convenience. The three premium colours that aren't Hamilton White are $495 each. So the H7 sounds like good value on paper. It's got a pretty stacked list of features, but the biggest selling point between this and the H6 is the way it looks. And this thing looks like it's ready to go off-road. It's kind of got this rugged, boxy look, even though it's a front-wheel drive hybrid. And I'll come back to that, but let's look at a couple of things that I think are noteworthy about the way the H7 looks. And I'll start with the grille and these headlights, because with the round headlights, and these inserts here in the grille, it looks a little bit like they were sort of inspired by a high-performance Mustang. Kind of an odd thing to see on a big SUV, maybe aside from the Bronco. The LED headlights, DRLs, and these fog lights down here all kind of mean you're prepared for any weather, or even if you wanted to drive it in the dark on unsealed roads, stuff like that. But like I said, this is a front-wheel drive hybrid, so it's probably not the sort of thing that you will actually take into those situations. Down the back, there's some taillights on it that look a little bit like the same taillights from the short-lived Mazda MX-30. And then overall, from the side, you've got things like these bolt-on looking fenders around the wheels, this sort of whole boxy shape that makes it look a little bit like it's maybe a bit more rugged than it actually is. The outside of the H7 is designed to be a little bit more interesting than everything on the road. The interior takes it a next step, and I'd probably call it busy in here is the word I would use. There's a lot going on. I'll start with the materials and the actual way everything's laid out, the way it looks. You've got some fake carbon fiber here with fake bolts to make it look like it's been, properly screwed in. You've got some fake aluminium. There's some actual leather and some fake leather as well, according to GWM. You've got all these different shaped vents. There's these sort of two-decker vents at the side here. There's this little sort of like tiny little storage space here, some more fake bolts. There's a lot going on. Visually, I would say maybe too much going on. But in terms of the convenience of the interior and the way that all practically works, there are plenty of places to put things. For example, you've got this nice big storage bin down here. There's a little tray on top, plus that's got a little vent in there for cooling things down. This is also pretty comfy to lean your elbow on. There's a nice big space up here with the wireless phone charger for my stupidly big Samsung phone, and the cup holders in here, one of them is actually adjustable, so you can click it down if you've got a tall water bottle, although for things like even the biggest coffee cups, they sort of do get a little bit lost in there. They're not quite shallow enough. There's two places to put the water bottle down in the regular spot, but then in front of that, there's this little strappy bit that kind of holds it in place and stops it from rattling around, which is pretty convenient. On top of all that, you've also got the tech. Now, this massive multimedia screen in the middle is quite big, and it's pretty clear. GWM's operating system is actually quite good, in my opinion, for a modern car. There's not really confusing sub-menus. Everything's pretty easy to find your way around in. The settings has a lot of easy ways to get to everything. But for the most part, you'll probably be using the wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which translate pretty well to this screen as well. In terms of the driver display here in front of me, I've also got a head-up display too, but the driver display is nice and clear. I can pretty much always tell exactly how to find my way around, find what information I need, stuff like that. And it's pretty clear in terms of like just this stuff you would really hope to see clearly, like the speed, things like that as well. This seat is electrically adjustable. It's also heated, but where I'm sitting, the way that the steering wheel adjusts and the seat, everything's pretty good. Arms, legs, everything's in a comfortable position. Visibility seems quite good, and you know, obviously lots of headroom, plus a couple of comfortable places to rest my elbows on a longer trip. Back here, I'm sitting behind my own seating position as usual, and I've got to say, you could probably fit a couple of actual big dogs back here. I've got so much knee room, my feet fit properly in front of the seat in front of me, plenty of headroom as well, despite the slightly sloping roofline, and even though the door card elbow rest isn't quite as comfortable as this fold-up center one, it's pretty good. Me at 178 centimeters, fitting back here just nicely means that even if you were 6 foot or above, you'd probably be pretty comfortable back here too. There's also this nice soft headrest behind me as well, one for the center too, and plenty of light thanks to the sunroof. In terms of actual amenities and things that you can sort of make use of back here, there's this little vent here for both passengers, although the up and down adjustment only goes the same for both of them at the same time. So little bit of an argument there, but there's USB-A plug under that, and there's that same little strappy sort of water bottle holder in each side back here too. There's also another little spot for more things, cup holders here, which are actually a little bit better than the ones in the front. And you've also got this little sun visor here, which is a good feature and should be in more cars that you're likely to put the kids in the back of. All right, big dogs, you don't actually have that much space back here in the boot for a mid-size SUV. You've got 483 litres, which is pretty small. The space also looks pretty small, it looks a bit cramped. Under here, you've got sort of some of this stuff. There's the battery for the hybrid pack. The actual regular car battery is in here as well, and there's a tyre repair kit too. Now, if you fold those rear seats down, you get 1,362 litres, which is a lot more useful, but still not as much as you'd get in some rivals, like rivals from Toyota, Hyundai, Kia, etc. Under here, there's actually a pretty peppy drivetrain. 179 kilowatts and 530 newton meters come from a 1.5 litre turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder engine, joined by an electric motor, driving the front wheels through a 9-speed dual clutch transmission. All of that on paper sounds like something that you would find in sort of a hot hatch from like 10 years ago, but this front-wheel drive family SUV does pretty well with it. One of the first things you might notice in the H7 is that it feels pretty peppy off the line. The hybrid system in it is driving just the front wheels, so all that, just about 180 kilowatts, is going through those two wheels. And if you're turning the corner, say out of a driveway as you take off, you might notice some wheel spin. It's just one of those things where it feels a little bit too eager, straight off the line, just because you get all that torque from the electric motor straight away. If it's smoothed out though, the acceleration in this is pretty good. It's quite nice and smooth and linear. Once you're actually rolling along, even for things like overtaking at higher speeds, the power delivery in the H7 feels pretty good and nicely sorted out. It means that, you know, this brand has gone a fairly long way when it comes to combustion engines, hybrid systems, things like that, and it feels quite nice here in the H7. It's a relatively big car, and it doesn't feel like even that little 1.5 engine, even with the hybrid assistance, is underpowered or struggling at any point. It doesn't really complain when you really put your foot down, and when you're up to those sorts of speeds, everything else about the car feels pretty good too. Its steering isn't anything to write home about, but it's accurate enough. Get a little bit of wind noise at higher speeds. There's some road noise even here at 50 k's an hour, but everything else about the car feels, pretty nicely refined for what it is, and especially at that price point. One thing I will say is that if you are driving the H7 quickly and coming into fast corners, there's quite a bit of body lean, and you get sort of a little bit of that sway as you accelerate and brake as well. It sort of happens on all axes, but if you do find yourself with the car leaning heavily into corners, it probably means you're driving it too fast for a mid-sized family SUV in the first place. The suspension's pretty good. I haven't noticed any major red flags, no bumps that feel overly harsh or crashing through, and it's not numb enough that I can't tell what's going on under the road, but of course it doesn't feel, like there's enough communication that I could really put this car through its paces if I wanted to. A lot of the driving practicalities in here work pretty well. I've got pretty good visibility out the front, for example, but the shoulder line rising over towards the C-pillar means shoulder checks are a little bit limited. And aside from the visibility, physically everything works pretty well in here in terms of, my driving position, how comfortable I am in the space, and the seat is holding me in place nicely while I'm cornering, driving, everything like that. It all works pretty well. Turns out the H7 is actually a nice and easy car to drive, even with its fairly busy interior and kind of odd, quirky design. The H7 has a 5.7 litre per 100 k's fuel consumption claim, but on test we saw a figure of 7.1 litres after a pretty spirited drive. The H7 has a 61 litre fuel tank and needs at least 91 RON fuel. There's no ANCAP rating for the H7, but it does have 7 airbags plus a bunch of other kit that's quite useful for keeping you safe on the road. Things like a surround view parking camera, parking sensors front and rear, plus other safety systems like front and rear collision warnings, AEB junction assist, adaptive cruise control, traffic sign recognition, and driver monitoring. In terms of the way the safety systems behave when you're on the move in the H7, they're pretty good, even with things like adaptive cruise control turned on, lane keep assist, stuff like that. I haven't had too many major interventions. The only things are the annoying sounds very occasionally when the car reckons the speed limit is, at 25 when you're actually on the highway or something like that. But aside from that, if you manage to turn everything off, if you're going to be having to deal with stuff like that, it's not too annoying, it's not intrusive, and at no point does it feel dangerous or that annoying. For a more comprehensive list of safety features, go to the full review at carsguide.com.au. The H7 is covered by a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, as is standard for GWM. Additionally, the high voltage battery pack is covered by an 8-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Service intervals are 12 months or 10,000 Ks, averaging $429 per service, which isn't incredibly cheap. The H7 probably won't find itself as one of GWM's most popular models, and that's okay because GWM's only brought in one variant. They don't expect that either. But if you want something that's a little bit more interesting than the H6, is decent value, packed with features, and looks kind of cool, the H7 isn't a bad thing. It drives pretty well, and like I said, there's some decent value to be had there. I just kind of wish they'd stuck with the big dog name. Oh.